continuing with the slide. Now that we are discussing the essentials of the promissory note, here the payee must be a certain person. We have already discussed this. Next. Now, next essential is that the sum payable must be certain. Now, it means that certain means that there must be certainty in the sum payment too. For example, for a valid note, it is essential that the sum of money promised to be payable must be certain and definite. So, in this, it must be written. It must now next we will discuss the examples of this point. Next, the amount payable must not be capable of contingent additions or subtractions. So there must not be any conditions. So continue with the slide. So we are here. Now the examples maybe, so I have, as I have discussed, that the amount must be certain, which is promised to be paid, and next the amount must not have such conditions or contingencies that it will be payable after this, it will be payable only and at this point. So it must not be like that. So here the examples may be: A signs instruments in the following terms. First, I promise to pay B rupees 500 and all other sums which shall be due to him. First thing. Now, second, I promise to pay B 5,000, first deducting thereout any money which he may owe me. Now, these are the two examples. Now, here, although the amount is certain, but the problem is that these both examples are having a some contingent additions or subtractions. For example, so in the above these in these both illustrations, these are the invalid promissory notes or notes because the exact amount to be paid by A is not certain. First, the amount is not certain, and secondly, there are n number of conditions attached to it, which may happen, which may not happen. So, as I've already discussed, while making the promissory note, it is the essential of the promissory note that unusual or contingent additions and subtractions should not be there in the P note. Fine. Next, the amount payable must be in legal tender money of India. Now, legal tender money of India, it must be in the terms of Indian national rupees. It should not be like that. I am paying this Japanese yen to the XYZ person. Now, it is not a valid promissory note in India. So, if the promissory note is to be written in India, then it must be like that: a document containing a promise to pay a certain amount of money or foreign money, or to deliver a certain quantity of goods, is not a note. So, it must be in the Indian currency only. So, if we are giving an example, or if you are writing a promissory note to pay something in the foreign currency, then it will be not a valid note. Now, next important instrument that we have to study is bills of exchange. I think that all the rules and regarding the essentials of the promissory note has been discussed. Now, with next now the next topic we are going to start is the bills of exchange. Now, as we have discussed that we have to discuss three type of negotiable instrument which are in our syllabus. First is our promissory note or P note or notes. Now, next is the bills of exchange. So the definition of bills of exchange under the inst- uh, instrument of negotiable, that is negotiable instrument, Indian Negotiable Instrument Act 1881, are under the section 5 of that Indian Negotiable Instrument Act 1881. The negotiable instrument defines the bills of exchange as follows. Now, what it defines? Fine. A bill of exchange is an instrument in writing containing an unconditional order signed by the maker. So here again, a bill of exchange is the instrument. So instrument, it means that it may be written on the paper. It must be in writing. Now what it should contain? It should contain an unconditional order. Now unconditional order regarding what? The payment. The unconditional order regarding the payment of the money signed by the maker. So here again, it is signed by the maker, directing a certain person to pay certain sum of money only. So here, the person who has making maker the bills of exchange has directed the certain person to pay a certain amount of money. So here it again it should not be like I will pay as you supply the goods to me. Again, then this is not an example of bill of exchange. For example, if it is written that I have sold goods worth rupees 10,000 to Mr. B, and Mr. B is the maker of the bill. So Mr. B signs the bill and passes to me that on the presentation of bill on due date, the payment will be made to me. So here, so here it is a certain amount. So the amount of the sum of money should also be certain. Next, only to or to the order of a certain person or to the bearer of the instrument. Fine. So the payment should be made to the certain person or the person who is bearer of that particular bills or bill of exchange. Now, for example, Mr. X purchases goods from Y of 4 rupees 1000. So first party is Mr. X, and who has purchases the goods from Mr. Y for rupees 1000. Now Mr. Y buys good from Mr. S for rupees 1000. Now what happened that Mr. S bought the goods worth rupees 1000. He sold to Mr. Y, and now Mr. Y sold again it to the Mr. X. Now what will happen? Then the Mr. Y may order Mr. X. Now here Mr. Y may order Mr. X to directly pay to the Mr. S the amount due, that is rupees 1000. So this is called as the bill of exchange. So it means that if we exchange the bill, if we negotiate the bill, or if we transfer the bill from one person to another person, so this is known as the bills of exchange. Next, this is the specimen of the bills of exchange. If the bill is made, bills of exchange is nothing but the invoice or the bill which has been made by the person while which a person gets while purchasing the goods, which is the proof of the purchase. So here, so the amount here is 10,000. Now it is made in New Delhi on 2nd May 2001. Now it has been written 5 months after date. Pay Tarun or his order the sum of rupees 10,000 for the value received. Now here it is for the 10,000. So here the amount is to be paid to Tarun or the order, or if the Tarun has endorsed the bill or has given the order to the another person, or he has transferred the bill to the another person. Now after 5 months it will be payable to Tarun or to the next person to whom the bill has been transferred. Now here, who to whom the bill now if the bill is again transferred, then here it is written that now it has been endorsed to Mr. Sameer, his address. Now if it is accepted, then here Sameer will write accepted and he will sign, and the first here stamp and signature down of the Rajiv, who has purchased the goods from the Mr. Tarun and has to pay the payment to the Mr. Tarun. Now here again there are three parties. One is Mr. Tarun, who is the seller, Mr. Rajiv, who is the buyer and received the goods worth rupees 10,000, and Sameer, to whom the bill has been endorsed. So the final pay will be Mr. Sameer as he accepted the bill and for the rupees 10,000. Now this is known as the endorsement of the bills of exchange. Now what are the who are the parties to the bills of exchange? So there are the various parties to the bills of exchange. First, there are three parties which are involved in the bills of exchange. First is the drawer. The drawer is the person who makes the order for making payment. In the above specimen, the Rajiv is the drawer. So here, so Rajiv has to make the payment. So he is the drawer. So he has drawn the bill. He has written the bill. Next drawing, the person to whom the order to pay is made, he is generally a debtor or a drawer. So it is Sameer in this case. Now it is Sameer because the bill has been endorsed. Otherwise, it will be Tarun. Next, the pay. The person to whom the payment is to be made in that case is Tarun. Now here, find firstly the payment is made to Tarun now, or if he orders this to pay to the Sameer, then it will be only paid to Sameer, else the actual pay will be the Tarun, who will receive the payment after the 5 months. Next, the drawer can also draw the bill in his own name, thereby himself becomes the paying. Here the words of the will could be paid to us or order. So here again, a same person who is maker and drawer, a person who is a drawer can also be a payee in the case of bills of exchange, whereas in the case of promissory note, it will not be happening. Next, in the bills where the time period is mentioned, just like the above specimen, this is called the time bill. For example, this is called time bill because here the time of the 5 month after the after date. So here the date is this, so the time is 5 months after this date. So this is also known as a time bill. Next, but the bill may be made payable on demand also. This is called as the demand bill if the bill is payable on the demand. Now, what are the essential elements of the bills of exchange? So, first essential element that it must be written. So, the bill which is verbal is not allowed. So, bill is always in the written. Second, it must contain a order to pay. A mere request to pay on account will not be a amount of an order. Now, here in the case of bills of exchange, it must be a order to pay. So the after this certain date, if it is a time bill, after this certain date, the bill will be paid to the payee. Then it is called the bill. If just a mere request for the payment is not known as the bill. Next, the order to pay must be unconditional. Now again, as just as in the case of promissory note, the order to pay must be unconditional. It must be unconditional. Second, it must be signed by the drawer. Now, who is the drawer? A drawer is the person who signs the bill of exchange, who signs the bill. He is also known as the drawer. Next, the drawer, drawee, and pay must be certain. Now, again, this must be a certain person. A bill cannot be drawn on two or more drawees, so it must be on the one drawee and of the one person, but they may be made payable in the alternative to one or more of the pay. Now, for example, it has been written that in the conditions that out of bill of 10,000, the bill of 5,000 is to pay to Mr. Tarun and next to Mr. Sameer. So here there may be a two pays in the previous example. So first the drawer, drawee, and payee must be certain, and next a bill cannot be drawn on two or more drawees, but a bill can be there can be two or more payees in the case of bills of exchange. Next, the sum payable must be certain. Now here again the sum payable must be certain. Now it should be unconditional. So here the amount is rupees 10,000, so it must be a certain amount. Next, Next, the bill must contain an order to pay money only. Now, next, the bills of exchange here, it must be order to pay money and money only. It should not be order to pay some goods or something else. Next, it must comply with the formalities as regards date, constitution, stamp, etc. So, all the legal formalities which we have to do has to be done in the proper manner. Without that formalities, a bill may not be paid by the drawee to the pay. Now, next important document that we have to discuss is the check. The check is just a document we are using in our daily life for the payment. So, in the case of check, we will discuss it with one by one. What is the meaning of check and how it is used, and what are the essentials of the check? Now, explaining check, the check means the check is the means by which the person who has fund in the hand of the bank withdraws the sum or some part of it. Now again, the check means it is a negotiable instrument which is made by the person, and it is drawn on the bank. So when the check is drawn on the bank, it is presented for the payment to the bank. Then bank will either directly transfer the payment to the particular account, or bank will make a payment to the bearer. This we will discuss in brief in the while we are discussing about the type of the check. I will explain all these things in that particular slide. So next, the check is a kind of bills of exchange, but it has additional qualifications, namely, now again, we can also say a check is a bill of exchange, but there are two conditions. Only after that we can say that this is a check. Otherwise, it will be a bills of exchange. So first, it is always drawn on specified bank. For example, you are having an account in Punjab National Bank or HDFC Bank. Fine. In that case, if you have drawn a check, so it is drawn on the specific bank. And for example, you are having a checkbook of HDFC bank account, and you have made a check and drawn on the bank. Now here, the bank on which the check is drawn is the specified branch, or that is the HDFC bank. Next, it is always payable on demand without any days of grace. Now the check, for example, you have made the check for today, or you have make a check of self today, and goes to bank for the for withdrawing the payment, and you have drawn the check on the bank. Now it is the duty of the bank to pay on demand. It means that whenever the document is presented, and it should not be there is no days of grace, and no delay should be done in clearing the check. So when these two conditions are fulfilled, then the and all other features are same as the bills of exchange. So that this is known as the checks. Now, crossing of checks. A checks can be open check or mirror check or cross check. This I will explain one by one. So, what is the meaning of open check? If you have make just a check on the name of person and you have written nothing on that. For example, pay to Mr. Hirsch. So here it has been written pay in the name of pay to, you have written Mr. Hirsch, and you have specified the amount and passed the checks to the person. Now here this check is known as the open check. That a person whose name is Hirsch can directly draw the check upon the bank and can withdraw the money from the bank. Next, a bearer check. A bearer check is the check it in which the payment is made to the bearer irrespective of the name written on the check. For example, the check has been given to Mr. Hirsch for the payment, and Mr. Hirsch transfers the check or endorses the check to Mr. Manish. Now here, the Mr. Manish is the bearer. So if the Mr. Manish present this check to the bank for the payment, now it is the duty of the bank to clear the payment as it is endorsed by Mr. Hirsch to the Mr. Manish. So here this is called the bearer check. So bearer check is a check, the it is a check with the person to whom it is having can get the payment. Next is the cross check. Now cross check means when we cross the check on the left side by making two lines. If these two lines means that, so this is the additional security feature which is available with the check, because to stop or to avoid the misuse of the check. So if the check which is issued by doing the cross on the left top corner, it means that you are making the check or the document more secure. Now what it means, we will explain one by one. Now, explaining the type of check, first is the bearer check. Bearer check, as I have already stated, that it is the open check or the bearer check, the check where the holder of the check will get the payment. For example, Mr. B is the holder of the check, so he is the bearer, so he can present the check for the payment to the bank. Now next, now the cross checks. Now the crossing of the check can be done in many of the ways. First, if you have making the two parallel lines on the top left corner of the check. Now what it means, that it means, for example, you have written Mr. Hirsch, Mr. Hirsch, and you have drawn a two parallel lines. Now it makes a check as the account pay, as it means that these checks must be paid in the account only. Next, if you have written and company, now it means that uh, Messrs ABC and company. If you have written such things in two lines, then this check can be payable to the account of that particular company only. That is and company. You can also write as the full and company, or you can write as the and CO. So this check will be only paid in the account of particular company, and it cannot be presented for the payment for the direct withdrawal, that is for the counter payment. And all the checks which are closed, it can be endorsed to the another person, but it cannot be withdrawn on the counter. So here the withdrawing of the money on the counter is not allowed when the check is crossed. So it will directly go to the particular bank account, either to whom the check has been endorsed or to the person who is having the check. So here, if it has been written in the lines and company, it means that it will go in the company account and not in the person account. So if he has made the endorsement, again he has made the endorsement in some favor of some company, then it is valid. And if it is written and company, and the check is endorsed in the favor of the natural person, so it will be, the payment will not be made. Next is the not negotiable. If you have made two parallel lines, and in that parallel lines we have written that not negotiable, again this is the additional security feature. When it is written as a not negotiable, it means that the check cannot be negotiated or cannot be endorsed to the another party. For example, you have to take money from Mr. A, Mr. B has to take money from Mr. A. Now if on the check it is written that not negotiable, then in that case, the if although the B has to pay to Mr. C, now he cannot endorse the same check to the Mr. C, because the check is not negotiable. Only the negotiable check, the document which is negotiable, can be transferred from or endorsed from the one party to another for the payment. Now next, and company not negotiable. Now again, this is another a security feature, uh, which means that the check will go in the particular company account and it cannot be negotiated to another person. Although the check where it is written that add company and company, it can be negotiable. If it is written that and company not negotiable, then this checks cannot be endorsed to the third parties, and the payment has to be made to the particular party only and only to the particular party to whom the check has been given, and he can draw the check on the bank. Now next, the special crossing of the check. This is a general crossing of the check. Now specific crossing. For example, in the check, it is crossed like this: account SBI, Bank of India not negotiable. Now these are the three special type of crossings. If you had made a check where it is written with account SBI, so that check can be presented for the payment in State Bank of India only. So this check cannot be presented for the payment or for the transfer to any other branch. For example, the check, you have made a check of HDFC Bank and given to your party, and you know that the your account is having the your party is having the account in State Bank of India. Now what you have done drawn a two parallel lines and you have written account SBI only. So it means that the account will be the amount will be go to the account of State Bank of India. Now this is the additional security feature which is provided under the Indian Negotiable Act 1881. It means that if you cross the check, so if you cross the check and you have written this thing, it means that it will go directly to the account of State Bank of India only. For example, I have made this check on the I have given the check of HDFC to Mr. Umesh by writing account SBI. So I know that Mr. Umesh is having the account in SBI. Now, if I have done nothing and I have written only Mr. Umesh, and if the Mr. Umesh lost the check and another person whose name is Mr. Umesh present the check for the payment to the bank. Now, bank will send that check in the clearing and transfer the money and credit the money to Mr. Umesh. Either the Umesh is not the Umesh to whom the check has been given. So to avoid these things, it is written account SBI. Now, the Umesh whose account is in SBI will only get the money. Next, here Bank of India. Now it means now here it is for the particular account only. Now here it is written as the Bank of India. Now it means that it can be transferred. The money can be transferred by the check to any account in the Bank of India only. The check will not be encashed in any other branch. So it is only for the Bank of India only. Next is Bank of India not negotiable. Again, if the term not negotiable is written, it means that this check cannot be endorsed to the another party as the check is not negotiable. Now next, restrictive crossing. Now it is the most secure type of crossing, that is restrictive crossing, that is account pay only. In these all these a person can get the payment on the counter too, but in case if you have written this, then if you have written AC only, again this two crossing means the check to made it as account pay only. Now if we have done some, we have put some more restrictions on this. For example, here account pay only Bank of India. Now if we have issued the check by writing this thing, so the payment will be only made to the particular account of the Bank of India only. It will not be clear in any other bank. For example, next it has been written account pay. So if you have made the check on the name of Mr. ABC, and you have written in the two parallel lines account pay. Now account pay, it means that the check will only go to the bank account of the particular person only, or to the person whom the check has been endorsed. So these checks cannot be encashed on the counter. So these are the security features. Now next is account paying not negotiable. If this term is written, it means that the check will be gone. This is the most secure type of check. If it is written there, account pay not negotiable, it means that the checks cannot be negotiated with another person, the amount cannot be transferred, or you cannot endorse the check to the another person. Secondly, it will be go to the pays account only. It will be not goes. It will be not at first. So it will not be paid on the counter. Second, the person cannot endorse the check to the another party in this case. So the check will be account pay only. Now, what is the meaning of negotiation? Now, negotiation, as we are discussing in every slide, a negotiable instrument, a not negotiable instrument. So, what is the meaning of negotiation? So one of the essential feature of negotiable instrument is the transferability. So, so it is the first essential feature. So a negotiable instrument may be transferred from one person to another person, in two of the form. So now the negotiation means the transferability of the particular financial instrument. So only the instrument which can be transferred from one person to another person is known as the negotiable instrument. So if the word not negotiable is written, that it means that transferability is not allowed in the particular instrument. As here it is written that not negotiable. If the word not negotiable is written, that it means that this instrument cannot be negotiated or transferred to the another person. So the negotiation can be done, or the instrument may be transferred from one person to another person in two of the following way. First is by negotiation, and second is by the assignment. Now, by negotiation, the transfer of instrument from one party to another party so as to constitute the transferee, a holder, is called the negotiation. So to constitute the transferee as a holder. So when we transfer the instrument from one party to another to constitute the transferee, that he is a holder, then this is called as the negotiation. Now negotiation means the process by which a third party is constituted as a holder. For example, how the third party will be constituted as a holder, we have as taken the example of three persons, that is A, B and C. Now here the check is made by Mr. A in favor of Mr. B. Now A is the drawee and B is the payee, to whom the amount is to be paid. Now here Mr. B endorsed the check to Mr. Z because he has to make some payment to Mr. Z. So here the Mr. B has constituted the holder of the instrument to Mr. Z. Although the payee will be Mr. B, but now the Mr. B has made the new payee by transferring the document to Mr. Z, that now he has constituted the transferee, a new transferee. So this is known as, but he has constituted a new party by transferring the instrument. So this is known as a negotiation. So as to entitle him the possession of the same and to receive the amount due thereon in his own name. Now, for example, now continuing with the example, if the check has been transferred to Mr. Z, now Mr. B had first to given the possession of that check to Mr. Z. Second, now Z will receive the amount due thereon in his own name. Now the check will be go directly to the Mr. Z account. So this is known as the negotiation. Now modes of negotiation, first is by delivery. By delivery means by just physical delivery of the particular negotiable instrument to the person. So in the example here, the B has delivered the negotiable instrument to Mr. Z. So here the instrument has been negotiated. Example A, the holder of negotiable instrument, payable to the bearer, deliver it to the B's agent to keep it for B. Here the instrument has negotiated. So instrument is negotiated because here A is the holder of the negotiable instrument first. In that it has been written that it is payable to bearer, so it is a type of bearer check. We can take an example of the bearer check, because bearer check is a check in which payment is made to the person who is the actual bearer of that particular final document. Now next, he delivers it to the B's agent. Now what he has done, he has transferred the instrument from the instrument got transferred from the A to Mr. B's agent to keep it for B. Now he has transferred to B's agent for keeping it for B. Now the instrument is called as negotiated to now as the new pay, that is Mr. B is here. Now next is the by endorsement. Now endorsement means by transfer. By transfer from one person to the another person. First is by delivery. Now because here A has delivered the negotiable instrument to B's agent for the B. So here it is by the delivery, and next is by the endorsement. Endorsement means when we endorse the financial instrument in the favor of third party to whom we are liable to pay, but the actual party is not liable to pay. So here it is known as the by endorsement or by the transfer of the negotiable instrument from the one person to the another person. Now next, by the assignment, the next mode of transfer of the instrument or the negotiation is the assignment. So when the holder of bill, note or check transfer the same to the another, he in fact gives his right to receive the payment of the instrument to the transferee. So when a person who is holding the check or the another instrument, he transfer the same to the another person, as he has assigned that duty or the thing to the another person, in fact, and gives right to receive the payment of the instrument to the transferee. So then this is known as the assignment. So where you have assigned the document to the another person. Now, what is the difference between the assignment and the negotiation? First, mode of transfer. So here, the transfer by negotiation required only delivery with or without endorsement. So the delivery is must in case of negotiation, endorsement of the bidder or order instrument. Whereas transfer by assignments required a separate legal document such as transfer deed signed by the transferee. So here the main difference is that the negotiation can be only be done by the delivery or endorsement with can be done only by delivery, that is with or without endorsement. And whereas assignment, whereas in assignment a separate transfer deed is to be transferred, is to be written as you have assigned this negotiable instrument to this particular person to receive the payment from the drawer on the behalf of that person. So here it must be having a separate signed document of the transferor, the person who is transferring the financial instrument. Next, notice of transfer is not required in negotiation, but whereas notice of transfer is required in the case of assignment. Next, consideration. In that case, the consideration must be provided in the assignee. So the consideration is something means the in the return. So here in the case of assignment, the consideration must be provided in assignee. So here the title, again the title is the title which is available with first in here. In case of negotiation, the person who has delivered, who has given the instrument to another person, is must have the title. Whereas in case of assignment, the person who is transferring the particular financial instrument must have a title. Right to sue. Now, in these two cases, in first case, the person to whom the actual document has been gained has a right to sue the another person. For example, there is a deal between A, B, and C. For example, A has given the check to Mr. B, and now Mr. B has endorsed the check to Mr. C in case of negotiation. So here Mr. C cannot sue Mr. A for the default in payment if there is default in the payment or the check got disallowed. So here Mr. C will inform the Mr. B, as the deal is between Mr. B and C regarding the financial instrument. So he will inform the Mr. B that the document you have endorsed get bounced, or it has returned unpaid, and now Mr. B is having the right to sue Mr. A, and Mr. C is having the right to sue Mr. B. So Mr. C cannot sue the Mr. A directly in case of negotiation. But in the case of assignment, if the right of sue is with the third party. For example, so if the A makes a check in favor of Mr. B, and Mr. B transfer the check and assign the check to Mr. C for the payment, and check got bounced or returned unpaid. Now in this case, the Mr. C can sue the Mr. A, as it has been transferred by the specific transfer deed, and all the rights which are with Mr. B has been transferred to the Mr. C after the transfer deed has been signed. So here this is the right to sue. So that's all for today's lecture. We will discuss the term holder and holder in due course in the next lecture. I am also sharing the video of this record lecture, so that you can read this, you can get this video anytime whenever you want. Thank you. If you are having any problem, you can send a feedback through a WhatsApp group. Thank you.